So my talk is in two parts today. The first part is looking at estimating the prevalence of schizophrenia in Australia and challenges that we faced in attempting to do that. And the second part is around estimating prevalence of cognitive impairment in people with schizophrenia. Some disclosures. It's very difficult to read these slides there. I hope I remember what I meant to be talking about. This research was designed in collaboration with Psychosis Australia with funding from Boehringer Ingelheim. So we're very grateful to both of those parties in supporting our research. So as I said, the first part, challenges that we faced in estimating the prevalence of schizophrenia in the Australian population. So as we've just heard very comprehensively from Anna, the current prevalence estimates of schizophrenia are very much outdated, being 15 years old now. And as we've heard, 15 years is an absolute eternity in this space. And we really don't know how the prevalence, and not just the prevalence, but the geographical distribution of schizophrenia might have changed in the past 15 years, and the socio-demographic characteristics of people who have been diagnosed with schizophrenia, how that might have changed. So that's sort of the rationale for undertaking this piece of research. And there's great potential benefits from this. Improving our understanding of the current burden of schizophrenia in Australia, identifying, specific geographical regions that might experience higher or lower prevalence, and importantly, understanding the socio-demographic characteristics of people with this diagnosis. And this has really important implications for health policy and mental health service delivery, in part by helping to identify areas of unmet need. So this is a really basic, fundamental, foundational piece of knowledge that we really need to know and understand. So how did we attempt to go about this? So we thought of two different methods. So one method was using PBS data. So this is pharmaceutical benefit scheme data. So from that data, we can look at diagnosis-specific or authority codes for schizophrenia, so which clinicians need to provide in order for people to receive a PBS subsidy for second-generation antipsychotics. First-generation antipsychotics don't require this authority code, so we would look at dosage levels for those antipsychotic medications as an indication for schizophrenia, and long-acting injectable antipsychotics will be assumed to be used for schizophrenia. So this particular, we're actually just following a methodology that has been published by Taylor and colleagues, and the citations there. So that was method one. And method two that we thought we would use would be hospital data. So looking at hospital data from all states and territories in Australia, so looking at both admitted and non-admitted patient care episodes based on diagnostic codes. So there are some obvious limitations of this approach. I mean, PBS data misses people who aren't receiving antipsychotics, have not been prescribed antipsychotics, and obviously hospital data misses people who aren't presenting to hospital for care. Despite those limitations, we think that these two data sets do represent the fullest and the best available data that we have at the moment, in the absence of a new SHIP study, which would provide much better data than these data sets. But this is what we have to work with in the interim. So where are we getting this data from? So the National Health Data Hub, it's a great initiative. I've copied a little quote from their website here, the National Health Data Hub. It's a major national de-identified linked data system drawing together core government administrative data sets across health, welfare, disability and aged care. It sounds wonderful. It sounds like an excellent source of information that we can draw on. This slide just presents some of the data sets that are included in the National Health Data Hub, and what we're looking at are those two there, the PBS and hospitals data. It also includes NDIS data, immunisation information, deaths, Medicare benefit scheme, etc., etc. We're just looking at two components. And this data set is managed by AAHW, Australian Institute of Health and Welfare. So what did we do? Well, we submitted an application to access this data. We submitted it, it's nearly 11 months ago now, and we went through the multi-stage approval process, and the number of gatekeepers here is absolutely phenomenal. So it had to be reviewed and approved by the National Health Data Hub project manager, approved, had to be reviewed and approved by their data custodian. That's approved, no problem there. Had to be approved by the AAHW Ethics Committee, no problem, they've approved it as well. Had to go to every state advisory committee because we were wanting hospital data from all states. So I guess there's 7 of those advisory committees, reviewed and approved by all of them. It had to go to an external NMA HREX, as a Human Research Ethics Committee. We submitted to St Vincent's Hospital in Melbourne. They reviewed it and approved it, no problem there. And then we get to the Department of Health, who have said, no, we don't approve this application. And the reason, I'm trying to remain calm here, the project does not weigh in the interests of the public. There are no outputs that would inform improvements to public health policy or patient treatment journeys. I respectfully disagree with that statement, and I think all of these other bodies who have reviewed and approved our project respectfully disagree with that as well. And that's where we've hit a roadblock. It has not been approved. So what are the challenges here? Well, it's a very time and resource consuming process with multiple stages of approval. It's very slow. It's nearly 11 months, as I've said now, and we still don't have a resolution. How long is this going to take? I've termed this black box decision making. There's a complete lack of transparency. We have no idea, I'll just go back, we have no idea, with the exception of the HREX, with the exception of the Human Research Ethics Committees, which essentially answer to the NHMRC National Statement of Ethical Conduct Research. The other stages, we have no idea what criteria are used to assess these sorts of applications. How are they judging the merit of our project and other projects? It's a black box. We don't know. Is there a power of veto at any of these stages? It appears to be, because we can't get past this Department of Health declining to approve our project. Is our experience typical, or are we an outlier? It's difficult to know, but I did actually find some data just yesterday that says there's only been three projects submitted to the National Health Data Hub from non-governmental agencies that have been approved in the past year. There are over 40 projects at the same state that we are at, in limbo, waiting for approval. Conversely, there have been over 40 projects approved from government agencies, and only 2 or 3 that are in the process of approval. So there seems to be a bit of inequity there in which projects are getting approved and which are not. Does this practice align with policy? I suggest that it does not. The Productivity Commission that Anna mentioned earlier in 2020 highlighted a significant gap in that routinely collected administrative data are seldom leveraged in mental health research. And that's just based on our experience. I can understand why that might be the case. A core principle from the NHMRC around using publicly funded data. This is publicly funded data. This data belongs to everybody here, every Australian. It's our data. We have funded this data. It's data that is about us. It's our data. NHMRC, we need to maximise the use of publicly funded health and health-related data for research. Yes, we do, but there are many barriers in our way. And I've put a citation there from a publication from Sue Cotton and colleagues around data linkage, which is a very interesting paper, which I encourage you to read if you're interested in this area, with a few suggestions such as data linkage isn't just a method, but it's a critical strategy that we need to transform mental health research and service evaluation. So my point was not to have a whinge about what we've experienced and whinge about our frustrations, but this is incredibly important. There's a lot of information out there, and it needs to be more readily accessible. So that was kind of the point to that first part of my presentation. I'll move on to the second part here, and this is a similar sort of project, but here we're not estimating the prevalence of schizophrenia, but the prevalence of cognitive impairment within people with a diagnosis of schizophrenia. This is using a different methodology, using a systematic review methodology to try and answer this question. So, as you probably know, cognitive impairment is typically conceptualised as a core feature of psychotic conditions such as schizophrenia. And the severity of cognitive impairment is very closely associated with poorer psychosocial functioning and quality of life. So the implications are quite serious. However, a comprehensive analysis of these relationships in the Australian context has not been undertaken, and in fact the prevalence of cognitive impairment in Australians with schizophrenia is unclear. So again, it's another really foundational piece of knowledge that we really don't have. So we attempted to address this, so not only to try and estimate the prevalence of cognitive impairment in Australians with schizophrenia, but to describe methodological approaches to assessing cognitive impairment. So what is cognitive impairment? Just very briefly, really refers to deficits or difficulties in cognitive functioning, so like memory, attention, problem-solving skills, reasoning, decision-making, things like that. And it can be defined in a statistical way, level of ability, below age-expected norms, or more qualitatively in terms of difficulties which significantly impact people's level of functioning and quality of life. So how do we attempt to do this with a systematic review? Like I said, looking at several databases of published research, and we're particularly interested in studies of what I've called naturalistic cohorts. So these are studies. I'm being told to wrap it up. Is that right? Is that what that means? It says I've got 6 minutes left. Okay. All right. I've been told to wrap it up. Anyway, we looked at 2,500 abstracts, nearly 1,300 full-text articles, and there were 200 articles included in our systematic review. However, only 11 of those reported prevalence estimates from naturalistic cohorts, with a huge range prevalence of 14.5% to 90%. Anyway, most of those didn't actually provide a definition of cognitive impairment or an estimated prevalence. So the point I'm trying to make is it looks like there's lots of evidence out there. 200 papers included in the review. No, there's really only 4 or 5 papers that could actually inform our research question. Limited reliable evidence from representative cohorts, lack of consensus around the definition of cognitive impairment, high degree of heterogeneity in methods used, and the methods used on the whole do not reflect best clinical practice approaches to assessing cognition. So some huge gaps there. All right, I better stop before I get in trouble. Yeah.